Hi all, this is Chris again. Today I'll be doing a review of the current generation Hummelink, and considering we started out with the past generation for the 4AG, this is fitment to a 1.8 liter Miata, and we tried the original kit and it will work. However, there are a lot of constraints when using this, especially if you've already done a coolant reroute on your car. And if you're going to run ITBs on any Miata, I suggest highly that you think twice before doing the coolant reroute. It simply isn't worth it for the amount of times that we had difficulty with the fitment of it. This is the original 4AG kit. This kit, I can show you some of the drawbacks it had as it sits here. This kit, it came with a different throttle position. So this is the first thing that we ran into when we went to fit it. It came with, he had actually sent the wrong throttle body, or the throttle cable bracket. And it mounted here, and it was actually for the NB, which made the cable far too long. So he sent me a replacement for that, which is this aluminum piece here. And that one worked, but it still is just a little bit shy of what I wanted for the amount of adjustment that I wanted. So what I did is I chopped up the other original and used this as a template and made this one. So this one we got full throttle with. The other drawback we had with the original kit was that at full throttle, this rod there, control rod, which actuates the throttle bodies, that was contacting my original the large oil pressure sending unit, and I tried to grind it down and I ended up ruining it. Luckily I had a spare, and when we initially fitted this, I put the original, because this is a 97 car that it's going on, I put the original small stupid oil pressure sender, which all that does is tell you whether or not you have 7 psi, and I didn't like that. So we ran into an issue with this part. We ran into an issue with this, and then because the original kit comes out 90 degrees from the head, there was a lot of other fitment issues. Primarily, a lot of them had to do with our coolant reroute hose, which comes literally right here, and it's directly underneath the panel that the filter mounts on. And I originally wanted to run 100 millimeter trumpets on this, but it's not going to fly when you have the original filter that you can get from Hummelink. I got this filter, which will fit 100 millimeter trumpets, and this one is actually easier to fit because of the shape of it. It's curved down here instead of being squared off. So this originally fit, even with this kit, it fit much better. And it also had the facility for 100 millimeter trumpets, so we ended up getting this to replace the squared off one that we got originally with this one. That one will work fine with the 70 millimeter velocity stacks. So moving along, once this was mounted on the car, we had issue with this hitting the oil pressure sender. And there is literally, if you look at the side shot of this, that's how it mounts to the head. And it's maybe about 2 degrees from vertical. And the problem you have with that is you have a lot going on underneath here. And once this is mounted up onto the head, it's extremely difficult. You can see the relationship of these vacuum hose lines and how close they are. It virtually makes it impossible to get a socket on the lower nuts. I literally had to install them using my fingertips and closing my eyes and virtually imagining it in my head. And even after that, I could not get them tight to save my life. I managed to get the back two tight, the front two I got as tight as I thought I needed, and that led to an issue with having a vacuum leak later when we started tuning it. Additionally, the other issue that we ran into was on this kit, the original kit, the TPS is all the way back here. And I had originally wired it up straight across from the way it is on the Miata wiring, and you only need 3 of those wires. So that wasn't an issue. The issue was I had them in the order exactly backwards from where they need to be. As a result, we weren't able to tune on alpha N, and we had to tune with speed density, and it became a huge nightmare, especially after these 2 bolts here, since they weren't able to be tightened, developed a huge vacuum leak there, and that brought an end to our tuning session. And I thought, what if the scenario is that the TPS is bad? Well, in this case, if you wanted to remove that, it's virtually impossible to get to that screw when this is mounted up to the head. And this also uses, we're in the United States, and we never got the 20 valve 4AG engine here. So we'd have to look for the Toyota throttle position sensor, and you may be able to use another one. I didn't research it extensively because in the end this actually worked. I just had the wiring backwards on it. But in this original kit, it just came with this. It came with that plug, and you had to make this extension yourself, and it's about a 1-foot extension running from the original location all the way over to there. And that part wasn't a huge big deal, but like I said, if that throttle position sensor ever took a dump and you had to replace it, you would literally have to remove the entire throttle body assembly in order to replace this, especially if you have a coolant reroute kit. I can't stress this enough. If you're doing a throttle body kit on your Miata, do not do a coolant reroute. It causes far more fitment issues and problems than it's worth. So this is the old kit. When we ran into these troubles, I found that the best solution was to just get the new kit. This is the current generation of Hummelink kit. And I can tell you, they added 10 degrees of up angle on it. That is how the new kit sits. We had issues with being able to even get the filter on without mangling it. This alleviates that problem. That filter goes on. We fitted it up earlier, but I wanted to do this comparison before I actually mounted the new kit. This is the underside of the new kit. This is a good comparison. This is extremely low profile. You can see how much room you have, and on this one, these fittings will come out at an angle with this much room in front of it, which means you have no problems getting a socket on these lower bolts. Additionally, this is properly bracketed, and he changed the size of the wheel to accommodate what type of Miata that you have. This is for an NA, and if you have an NB, it will have a slightly different sized wheel because the throttle cables are different on the NB and the NA. This one, everything was in the way. This one, nothing, because the actuator rods are on the top, and each one, instead of having one big spring down here, which really in the end was not strong enough to properly retract and close these throttle bodies on when you release the throttle. This one uses an individual spring on each throttle body. That makes it much stronger. It frees up room down here because you don't have to have a ginormous spring assembly the way you do on this one. This thing got in the way of everything, including my hands. Just trying to install this, my hand was so torn up from having to work around this, especially this sharp spring end right there. My hand looked like I'd wrestled a mountain lion. The new kit, nothing. The throttle cable will mount here. It goes around this way and actuates it like that. The way he's able to make this much more low profile is because instead of actuating in the vertical like that, it turns horizontally in the new ones by having the actuator rods on the top, and each throttle body having an individual spring gives it a much more positive closure of the throttle. Here you can also see, while we're looking at this is the position of the new throttle position sensor, vastly improved. If, like I said, if this thing took a dump, you'd have to pull the entire throttle, all the throttle bodies off of the engine in order to swap that out. This one is right up front. It's in the stock location of the original Miata throttle position sensor. Additionally, it's not off an engine that we never got here in the States. This is a Haltech, which is easily available. If this ever goes bad, it's these two screws right up here in the front. There's nothing in the way. Pop it on, pop the new one on, and you're done. And these are easily available in the United States as a replacement should it ever go bad. I don't expect it will be. It's not often that throttle position sensors go bad. But an additional good thing about the new kits, on the old kits, if you wanted to balance the throttle bodies, you had to take the air horn off because the adjustment screw is underneath the air horn on the face of this. On the new kits, it's right here. So you don't even have to take the throttle body, the velocity stacks off in order to balance them. This is the amount of improvements on this kit are phenomenal. And it's a night and day difference as far as the fitment goes. We fitted it up earlier and test fitted where and how easily it would be to get the filter on and off, and it's night and day difference. It's just phenomenally better. He really did his homework at addressing some of the fitment issues that I'm assuming he got more fitment issues on right-hand drive cars, because this would be in the way of so many things on a right-hand drive car, especially if you wanted to run larger velocity stacks. The new one, we got the new plate because obviously it uses a different bolt pattern and spacing for the new kit as opposed to the 4AG. The 4AG, I literally had to carve out the bottom of this in order for it to clear because it came directly over. I actually have it right here. This is the modification I had to do to the old one in order for it to clearance and not touch my coolant reroute hose. That one came out literally like that and went straight down onto the coolant reroute hose. This one here, it not only sticks out farther, but with that up angle, it's not going to be anywhere near the coolant reroute. I still believe that you should not do a coolant reroute, even with the new kits. It's still going to be kind of in the way in certain circumstances. But here we can look at the advantages that you have with the new kit. The main one is tremendous amount of room on the bottom. You have a better position for your throttle bodies. Oh, and also the new kits, instead of having to make this extension, the new kits come with this. It is virtually plug and play. There is no danger in screwing up or having the wiring backwards like I had. It literally plugs into your old Miata plug, and then this plugs directly into the new Haltech, right in the exact same position. Super easy to get to. I gotta give credit to Nils Hummelink because the improvements of this are so vast and so overwhelmingly better that I just have to say, if you're going to do anything in your business and you have that type of constant, continuous improvement over one generation to the next, it's a night and day difference as far as fitment issues. And whenever you're fitting something like this to your car, you have to be cognizant of, you know, how easy, what if this goes, if this goes wrong? What if that goes wrong? What if I have to do this? You just have to realize the advantages when you look at these. And the new kit, it does have larger velocity stacks. The new kit has an 80 millimeter velocity stack. It also has the provision, he says he's coming out with a 50 millimeter spacer, which I'm assuming will mount here, and then you could have the plate and then have these, because these velocity stacks will fit under the original smaller Piper Cross filter. I prefer that one for fitment. Even using the smaller velocity stacks, I still prefer that one for fitment, simply because when you're dealing with the stuff underneath here, this shape is much more compliant than the square one is. The square one, especially with this kit, it was literally touching like where the fuel rails come up on the, or the fuel lines come up on the NA. You'd have less issues fitting it to an NB, but it is what it is. So for now, this is basically these differences. You can look at this difference here if you look at it sideways, and we have them both together like this. This is how they would be on the head, okay? And it doesn't look like much here, but you can see that additional 10 degrees of elevation there. You can see where the ends of the velocity stacks are, and the position that that throttle plate will be in. And instead of being pressed for room on the back like you are with this throttle position sensor, there's nothing there. And additionally, these would be a godsend, honestly. You can balance them with the velocity stacks in place. You don't have to take the velocity stacks off in order to do that. That's much better. That's a vast improvement. It really is. And having all of this out of the way of the bottom, there's just tremendous amounts of room there now. You easily can get a socket when you're doing your install on the nuts. Whereas before, it was a virtual impossibility. There is no way, especially on the NA. As you can see here, the NA uses this upper holes on the manifold, and there is virtually impossible to get a socket on there. It goes directly into these. These will stick out up here, and even on the top one, you've got plenty of room to get a short socket on there or any kind of wrench. I couldn't even get a regular wrench on these nuts because it interfered with these vacuum takeoffs. So for now, this will be the first half of this review of these. The second half of this review will be after I have these mounted and tuned on the car, so that I can give you a running interpretation of how good they are. This one actually ran pretty good. Even tuning on speed density, it was still pretty good. Nowhere near as good as it would be off Alpha N, but you know, that was because we developed that vacuum leak. But even on speed density, it was not bad, but it would just be that much better tuning on Alpha N. And I have to say one thing, regardless of whether or not you have the first generation or back, the machine work on these intake manifold adapters is absolutely fantastic. I mean, this is beyond professional quality. This is not some run-of-the-mill Chinese adapter thing. This has been precision machined. It is the absolute utmost quality that you could possibly ever ask for. It's just beyond belief. And additionally, I'll say this right now, these kits are, each one of these kits, this was actually originally more expensive than the current one, but regardless of what kit you have, the Hummelink kits come in, I think that we paid, it was about $1,200, and the Genve kit off of like Rev 9 is like $1,500 or higher, is maybe like $1,600 to $1,700. This is like $1,200, and this is, I don't have a Genve kit. I don't have experience with them, but from what I've had, they have their own set of issues that people have had to deal with when they've installed these. I mean, even if you, additionally, if you still want to do a 4AG kit, Nils also offers basically this manifold, but that will accept the 4AG. So if you have a set of 4AG, if you live in a country where you got the 20 valve 4AG and have access to a set of these, and you still wanted to stick with these throttle bodies, the new improved 4AG kit is basically this, only it fits the 4AGs. You still have some of the drawbacks. You're still going to have this on the bottom. You're still going to have to use this type of throttle cable, and you still will have the throttle position sensor in that case. So those parts you still have to deal with, you know, having to take the velocity stacks off. You're still going to have issues, but you'll have a lot less issues if you get the updated 4AG kit. But I wouldn't bother with that. I would go straight to this. This is just so much of a better kit, and they're from the same manufacturer. This is like 2 years of evolution, and Nils Hummelink has definitely addressed any of the issues. This, going from this kit to this kit, is like solving 90% of the fitment issues that I had trying to fit this and make it work. This is phenomenally better. It is heads and shoulders above. Like, I got this off in about an hour, but it took me the better part of a day to do the install. This I'll be able to throw on in under an hour. It's just that much better for fitment, ease of maintenance. Everything is out of the way where it needs to be out of the way. And the fit and finish of this kit is radical. As far as if you were to get like a Chinese universal kit that you can fit 4AGs, it's not going to be anywhere near the quality that this is, especially for the price. This blows away a Gen V kit as far as value. And also, I have to comment that Nils shipped this for me express. It was only 3 days from Holland to the east coast of the United States. I highly suggest that you do that, because otherwise you're waiting like 2 or 3 weeks for it to get through customs and all that garbage. Pay the extra money for the express shipping and you will not regret it. But for now, that's going to wrap up this part of my review of the Hummelink throttle body kit for the Miata. And we'll continue with this after I have it installed and tuned, and I will finish the review at that point. But for now, that's a break. All right, this is the second part of the Hummelink current generation review. We've had this on the car for about a month now. We had it tuned, and I've discovered a few things that I'd like to add to the review from the last time that I spoke, before we had it actually mounted on the car. In the prior review, I stated one of the advantages that this had over the 4AG kit is that on this kit, your idle adjusters are right here instead of being behind the air horns. Well, that makes it better as far as you don't have to take the air horns off, but this has ended up being one of the few drawbacks to this kit. And the reason I'll tell you is it is virtually impossible to get any kind of adjustment tool on these slotted idle adjust screws. And considering that we're running this without an idle air control valve, because that had additional issues that I'll mention in my ITB video that we're going to make after this, this is actually a bigger drawback than it's worth. The reason is it's virtually impossible to get in there. The best I could come up with was this. This is a screwdriver tip inserted into a piece of 4mm hose. And with that, you can get it on there, and with the lock nut loose, you can twist up here, and it works, but it's still extremely difficult. So I have suggested to Nils Hummelink that that he replaced these slotted screws with Allen heads, because with an Allen head screw, you can get one of these type of Allen keys that has the ball end on it, and that would facilitate being able to, because these can come in on an angle like that, and they're much more positive engagement. Once they're in there, it will be relatively easy to adjust them. And they move freely once you undo the lock nut, but this is what this kit requires in order to elevate it from this position. Other than that, I mean, ideally, if you could, I don't know if he makes these or has them made, ideally if you could change the design where the idle screw was vertical right here and came up through the passageway, the air passageway here, to where you could just get any tool on there, that would be an improvement. And that would be my primary suggestion to Nils, how to improve this kit. But in the meantime, my suggestion is that he replace these screws with Allen heads, and he's apparently working on it for me, but I think that should be something that he should replace in all of the kits. The only other thing that I had to say about fitting this was I bought the replacement stainless steel nuts from Nils, and instead of 12 millimeter like the stock ones and being regular steel, they're 13 millimeter and stainless. And the only caveat you have with that is that when you're installing this, the ones on the bottom, you tend to drop the nuts. It had happened numerous times, and with the stock ones, you can retrieve them with like a little magnetic retriever from behind the starter where they tend to fall. So one tip for installing, if you're installing the stainless steel nuts, is to put a piece of cardboard over something to keep them from falling behind the starter. Just, I'm telling you in advance, you're going to want to do that, because otherwise you're not going to be able to retrieve them if that happens. The only other thing about using the stainless replacement nuts that you get from Hummelink is because they're 13 millimeter, you have a hard time getting tools on the upper ones. The bottom ones are fine. The upper ones, my suggestion to Nils is to increase, I don't know if you can see in there with the camera, see that gap in between the screw or the nut and the throttle body manifold? He needs to enlarge that ever so slightly, not much, maybe 1/2 millimeter on either side of the nuts. Especially important, not as much on the front and the rear, but the two in the middle, or three in the middle actually. If you could increase the clearance on either side of that, just take a millimeter off either side as you machine the manifold, that would be a huge improvement as far as that goes. Other than that, that is the only two drawbacks of getting the new kit. The other suggestion I would have for Nils is to start carrying this filter instead of the smaller one that he generally carries. The reason I'm saying this is because even though this kit has better fitment and more clearance than the smaller one, this will also fit a 100 millimeter trumpet. So if you're fitting an 4AG kit and you're going to run the 100 millimeter trumpets, this will fit. But the main reason is because fitment is so much easier, and I'm going to show you how much easier this is to get on here. Goes over like that. You slide it down in there, and it goes right up. Look at that fitment. And the main part where the fitment is better is down here. Because of the shape of this sausage filter, instead of being squared off, if you were fitting the squared off filter, you would literally be having to scrunch it over the fuel lines and whatnot down there. So my suggestion to Nils for 3 advances in this kit is to, for the current ones, replace these idle screws with Allen heads, give a slightly more clearance on particularly the 3 top middle screws, especially if you're using the stainless nuts that he provides, because the 13 instead of 12, it's just a little bit easy. It would make it a little bit easier to get a tool on there without having to be really thin wall, which is what I discovered. And that's really about it. You have all kinds of clearance here that you didn't have with the prior kit. Here you can see the throttle position sensor and how easy that would be to get to replace. And this is the plug-and-play adapter that comes with it. This is the stock location, so all you have to do is plug it into your old Miata one, plug it right in, and you're done. No rewiring, none of that nonsense. And that's about it. Like as I said before, I stated that I could probably get this on under an hour. That was an underestimate. Obviously, you know, Murphy jumps in anytime that you make a statement like that. So yeah, this was it took me over an hour to get it on there, but it was nowhere near the ordeal that I had with the prior kit. This one fits so much better. It even fits reasonably well. You can see the clearance that we have. I don't know if you can get a shot of that. This is the current clearance we have with our coolant reroute kit, and with the prior kit it was literally touching it. I had to remove the bottom section of this. The fitment on this kit is outstanding. The throttle response is outstanding. The ease of installation was much better. Like I said, this is the only drawback with it. If, you know, I would suggest that he does replace these idle screws with Allen heads, but if he redesigns this, have this, instead of coming out that way, have it in the vertical, and it'll do the same job. It'll just cut off that air supply. Instead of through here, this passage here, you can see the passage where the air goes through right here. But if you put it in the vertical, then you can get any kind of tool you want on it, and it'll be dramatically easier. That's the only drawback to this kit that I found after installing it. So that pretty much wraps it up. I'm going to rate this kit at an 8 out of a 10. The quality is superb. The price is decent. Nils is always willing to work with you as far as helping you out if you hit a snag. If he makes the changes to the idle screws, I would give it a 9.5 out of 10, because, as I said, you can still fit the stainless steel 13mm nuts that he provides, but it would just make it a little bit easier for install. Get a little, maybe a millimeter on either side, just shave that much more off, and that would make the fitment even easier. But the fitment on this kit is outstanding. I would also suggest to Nils that he starts carrying the larger Piper Cross filter instead of the smaller squared off one. It just fits better. Even with the 4AG kits, it fits better, but it really fits good on this one. It's just the shape of it, and if you're running the 4AG kit, you can run the 100mm trumpets. So that's about it for this. It's a great kit. I'm going to rate it at 8 out of 10, and that will pretty much conclude the video. All right, because I don't do YouTube videos for a living, I forgot to mention that the other thing that I had to do, I did have to make my own extended throttle cable bracket, the same way I had to do on the other one. You can mount it on, it comes mounted on this one, but I had to mount it on this one, and mount it on that one. It almost did, but I wasn't able to have it retract all the way, and if I put it the other direction with the adjustment on the throttle cable, I wasn't able to get full throttle. So I ended up having to make an extended throttle cable holder, and that's one of the other detractors from that. My suggestion to Nils is to make it to where you mount it on the center one and then have a slot with 2 adjustment screws in the slot, so that you can actually make the length of it adjustable, and that way it would cover all of your bases. But I just forgot about having to add that to the video. But other than that, it's still an 8 out of 10 if he made that throttle cable. But the main thing is those idle adjuster screws. That's the one thing holding it back. So that's pretty much it.